Hey, what is up, guys? What is going on? This is my 2005 Suzuki KingQuad 700, and this is my 2008 Yamaha Grizzly 700. So about a year ago, I made a video comparing these two machines, and it was to give buyers an idea of generally what they would want to pick out of the 700cc class. Now, I'm making this video again because the last one didn't do too great. Not in terms of views, it actually did way better than I expected, but it's just I didn't make the video that well enough, and back then I only owned this one for about a month, so now it's been almost a year, so I just want to give my second thoughts and help people a little more. I want to make this really quick and short, so I will be comparing these things. The main things that people look for are comfort, handling, power, and reliability. So that's what I'm going to be really looking at those. I always looked at the Yamaha Grizzly as the kind of more comfortable machine. It does have longer suspension mounted to the lower control arms on the front. Suzuki has it mounted to the upper control arms. You can tell that there's just not as much suspension when you compare it to the Grizzly. It definitely has a softer front, you can tell, and same goes with the rear. You got a longer suspension as opposed to shorter, although these do look a little beefier. The Yamaha always just kind of gave the edge. The same thing was with jumps. Whenever I would jump this thing, it would always land like a pillow, and I wouldn't see that one the same way. But when I realized how you properly do jumps, I switched over to this thing, and it lands pretty well too. So it really just depends how you do it, but over bumps, this thing definitely does do better than the KingQuad, and the KingQuad just kind of bounces around a little bit more. Handling's the second thing I want to talk about, and even though the Yamaha Grizzly has softer suspension, it handles actually better around corners. I find it much more predictable and just generally much easier to ride. Part of that could be the power steering, because this is an EPS model. You can see it over there, but KingQuads didn't have power steering in 2005, so that could be something. But simply around corners, I can lean. This thing takes it very well, but this I feel a little bit more vague, and I feel like it could flip over a little bit easier. Now, I don't know if it's just PTSD, but since I crashed this thing, but a lot of owners have reported very twitchy steering. Now, again, part of that could be because it has no EPS, but especially down hills, you could be going downhill, and I've experienced this many times. This is exactly how I crashed. One of your wheels may hit a rock, and boom, your steering wheel, or I guess your handlebars, just turn and you can get flipped over. Now, of course, I've never really experienced this issue with the Yamaha Grizzly. You just turn it, and it's much easier to control around the corners, while this thing, you especially got to slow down. I can't really talk about the new ones or about the EPS models. I'm just going to have to test drive those and see if they make a difference. But comparing these two, then, you know, it does definitely matter, considering that this one's 3 years newer than that one. But also that these are well over a decade old. This one almost 2 decades old. It's 19 years old versus 16. So they definitely did do a lot of changes for 2024 models throughout the years, and I definitely felt that. Like, back to the comfort section a little bit, the Yamaha Grizzly definitely has nice handlebars. They are in a very good spot. They sit pretty high. Well, on the KingQuad, they're a little lower. One of the things I first noticed when I sat on the 2024 model, the handlebars were higher, and they were in a better reach. I felt more comfortable, just about as comfortable as that one, just simply sitting on it. However, power differences shift from this having the edge over to the KingQuad. Both are 700 cc's, with the KingQuad being 9 cc's bigger, and I don't know if it's that this thing was just rebuilt in 2021 and that this thing is completely stock, completely original, but the KingQuad is way better on hills. It just accelerates more smoothly, runs more smoothly, although I've always heard about that with Suzuki engines, that they just run much smoother. But when I was in West Virginia a couple months ago, I was mostly driving the Grizzly, but whenever there was a hill, you know, the hills can get pretty steep there. So when they're there, I could be holding the throttle a little bit, and when a hill came up, I would have to go about here to throttle and add just a little bit more so I can keep going at the same speed. The KingQuad, actually, I didn't have to do that at all. If I kept the throttle this much, I would just keep it. It would keep accelerating the same speed up the hill, which I found surprising. It just runs much smoother. The power generally is also better on the KingQuad. I've gotten both of these machines to 60 miles an hour, and tell you what, this one gets there way better. Even after 60 miles an hour, it still keeps accelerating very, very well. It just keeps going. Like, it feels like it could go almost 80 or something, but I've seen people go 70 in these. While on the Grizzly, once it starts getting to 50, it starts slowing down a lot. It's pretty hard to get it to 60. I have to really be on it for a long while to get it there, which, you know, I kind of get it. You don't really have to go 60 in these, but it does accelerate much slower, and it started topping out once I got to 63, and that's when I let off because I couldn't go really anymore, simply due to the road conditions. There was a turn coming up, so that's why. I would have probably gotten to 65 in this, and this thing I was going 62, and I had to let off, and I could have probably gone 70, possibly 75. Now, these are Japanese bikes, both known for reliability, and let me tell you, owning the KingQuad for 3 years versus a year, I can tell you I've had actually less issues with the KingQuad, and it's been a more reliable machine. Now, I mean, sure, quality has switched. Now Suzuki has better quality in 2024, and Yamaha's worse, but back then it was a little different. Yeah, this is kind of my fault. I crashed this thing. Same thing with up over here. I have this huge crack. I crashed this thing 2 years ago. So, you know, the quality hasn't been great, but here, panel gaps, whatever, but the frame was also replaced. So, I guess you can't really complain about this one either, but it's still better. However, on issues, this thing stalls once in a while. This thing stalls much more. It's especially at low speeds, when you're just kind of tapping the throttle. So that did kind of surprise me, because I was having issues with this, and I figured once I got this one, I was like, finally, it's going to go away. But it did not. So, with this thing, I have the issue that whenever I'm in lower high gear, sometimes the reverse light here is going to come up. For God knows what reason, I bet the connection's a little bit messed up. And it comes up, and the speed limiter comes on, and I can only go 10 miles an hour, and you're thinking, well, just click override. But override doesn't work. Probably the wire's rusted a bit, so that's an issue. But this thing did get a little rusty, so I guess that's more of a maintenance thing. I don't know. But the connection should be good. I replaced the sensor, and it was good for another half a year, and now I'm getting the same issue again. Another electrical issue I had with this thing was that the brake light didn't work. Now, the switches were completely fine, but these ends of the wires, the copper was completely corroded and weathered, which is why they didn't work. But that's, I guess, another electrical issue that could have been with rust. So, I don't really know. I can't really say which one's more reliable if this thing never had the rust issue, since it was a beach quad. But in my experience, the Suzuki has been a little bit better. I guess that really sums it up. It's just about a 10-minute video. If you want to watch my other video that I recorded, I do have some more information on these machines. I will link that in the description. But other than that, really, that's what my ownership has been. Both are great bikes. I really can't decide which one's actually better overall, but both are super fun. I rode them both yesterday at Lost Trails, PA, for the first time, so they were both really nice. And I guess that's going to wrap it up. You can see more on my channel, and I guess that's it. Goodbye.